y'all call romance? Really? Hey guys, it's Lauren here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm venturing in something that I never thought I would venture in. Since we were in quarantine, I decided to explore more genres that were in my house, and one of the ones that I discovered were actually a decent amount of romance novels. I decided to finally hop onto the romance wagon, mainly because of Chandler Ainsley. If you guys know her channel, I love it actually. It's one of the few booktube channels I actually follow, and she is a big believer of romance. I was like, why the fuck not? So I decided to pick up two books, Me Before You and Switch. I honestly don't know what I was expecting. The romances are from the 2010s, like early 2010s. I feel like there's been a huge cultural gap between the 2010s and 2020. So, I knew this would be an adventure, but I didn't anticipate how much of an adventure it would be. So, I'm just gonna give you guys the thoughts on the two books that I read. Let me start with Switch. This book has to be one of the worst books I've ever read in my entire fucking life. Have I emphasized my distaste for this book yet? Let me give you a general synopsis before we just hop right into my hate rant. So, The Switch is basically a book about this woman. She's in her mid to late 20s, and she is beginning to find her life exceedingly boring. Her life is kind of decent, but she is out there looking for a man, and she really wants to, I guess, explore her romantic and sexual urges. And lately, she's kind of just felt inhibited in those urges, especially with things going on at home and her whole work situation and everything like that. And then one day a box is sent to her house. The box wasn't intended for her actually. It was intended for her neighbor, she was pretty sure. But the box went to her house and it was filled with a ton of notes giving instructions for the recipient. Instead of giving it to her neighbor, she decided to keep it because she was she's a sneaky bitch. So she looks into the box and one of the notes gives her instructions on what to do. Basically, they're all daring instructions. Some of them are sexual, some of them are purely meant to be bold. But the protagonist decides to follow all of these little notes. They keep on being sent to her, and she keeps on following the instructions, and through following these notes, she begins to fall in love with whoever's sending the notes, and also just embrace herself sexually. So the synopsis does sound interesting, but once I picked it up, about 15 pages in, I realized that this was not really a romance book. It was partly romance, but it was mostly smut, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. I read some pretty strange fan fiction, so I was like, you know what, that's fucking fine. I'm mature enough to handle this novel. But going into the book, the first page is actually pretty interesting. Basically, she walks past this man on her way to pick up a gift for her stepmom, and she thinks, wow, what really handsome looking man, and stuff happens. I have to DNF this book, I'm gonna be honest. First, the protagonist was bitchy. I was under the belief that the protagonist was kind of this mild woman and everything, because literally in the introduction scene, she goes to this parchment shop and buys paper, that's her thing, and I was like, oh, that's cute and quirky, I guess. Quickly after that scene, we see her interact with a friend of hers named Kira, and she's not very nice to Kira. There's a lot of fucking slut shaming in this book, and a lot of that slut shaming is directed towards Kira, but also towards herself, which doesn't really make much sense. She's just oh yeah, Kira's such a typical slut, she dresses in really slim, exposing clothing, and she constantly goes out and gets with guys and yada yada yada. You can basically see a lot of hate towards Kira, which seems strange because Kira seems to be the only friend of this protagonist, and even though she keeps on reprimanding her friend for slave behavior, already 70 pages into this book, she's slept with two guys, so I don't really know what the fuck. It didn't really make much sense. Second of all, we discover on page 50 that the protagonist was married to this guy, and I was like, okay, cool. We don't realize that until halfway through their interaction where this guy says that he misses her and everything, and she's like, no, fuck you. But she continues to flirt with him, and it seems like this guy wants to get back with her romantically, but she basically just uses him for sex, and then tells him that he's pretty much worthless to her time, and that they should never be in a relationship again. First of all, why are you messing around with your ex-husband? Honey, come on now. Just why? It was really fucking weird. The second thing that really bothered me was the amount of sex scenes in this book. The protagonist is fantasizing about the guy that she ran into in the store on her way to pick up parchment, because again, she's a hoe for parchment. Oh my gosh, she just constantly wants this guy to make a move on her, and she wants this guy to sleep before make a move on her because she knows she dressed slutty, and she's like, oh, I look good and everything. It was pretty bad. There's a lot of sex scenes in this book, and normally it wouldn't bother me, I wouldn't really give a fuck, but the sex scenes aren't even well written. They aren't very provoking. They don't come off as like a sexy feeling. It's kind of just robotic almost, and it felt like the author was trying to word flex during some of the sex, but it just failed. Like, it flopped. All the sex scenes flopped. And considering about like 75% of this book is sex scenes, it didn't work. What's another thing that really bothered me about this book? There's a lot of mention of high school in this book. I'm thinking that this book is supposed to be a new adult or like mid-20s, like going on 30s kind of book, because it seemed like this woman was going through like a crisis or whatever, trying to like get into the rhythm of adulting. But there's so much mention of high school, which is like, why? Once I'm in my mid-20s, once I'm in my like around mid-20s, late 30s, I am not going to be thinking of high school as often as this woman is thinking of high school. And literally everyone she interacts with in this book, other than like the really old people, she's somehow known in high school. And she somehow always brings up drama from their old high school. And I'm like, girl, move on. You have your own fucking life. It just came off as really childish, and considering this is like an adult book, I just don't understand. So that bothered me a lot. And ultimately, like, once we get to a point where like the protagonist ends up sneaking a look at some of the male of one of her like romantic interests, I just put down this book because it wasn't appealing to me anymore. There wasn't really a plot. It didn't make much sense to me, and I had to put it down. I had to DNF it. It was really fucking bad, and I don't recommend reading this. I honestly don't understand how this is a national best-selling author. Like, what was y'all's taste back then? I have to wonder. I mean, we did go through the whole Twilight phase, and then like 50 Shades of Grey, so maybe, yeah, no, I still don't get it. This was bad. I had to rate it like a 1 out of 5 stars, and I couldn't even reach page 100, so that just goes to show. The next book I read was Me Before You, and I honestly did like this book. I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I'd say this is like a 3.5 to 4 out of 5 stars for me. I actually really did like the way the author wrote this book, because it was definitely very humorous, but then when it got dark, you know? Yeah, I didn't explain the book. It's basically about this girl named Louisa Clark, and she just got fired from her job, and she was looking for a new job in order to help pay for funds for her family, because she was basically her family's like main source of income. So like, it was really prudent that she got a job. After like job hunting for a while, she ended up finding a job with the Trainer family, which is this really rich family that lives in their state. So she goes to work for them, and she ends up encountering Will, and they basically have this whole like love story thing going on, and he's stuck in a wheelchair, and she's basically trying to like help him be less of an asshole and discover like how good life can be again after being stuck in a wheelchair. So that's like the general synopsis of this book. I actually really like this book because of the way the author wrote human interactions in this book. A lot of them did make me laugh or like make me smile. There are obviously moments between like Will and Louisa, because that was like the main story going on, their relationship and the way they interacted with each other. And I thought that was well done. I really liked their like friendship and getting to know each other. Like, I have to say that my favorite part of this book was the family interactions, because even though they're very aggravating, it was very clear how much they loved each other. So I really liked it. Like the family interactions, the self-deprecation, and just like the general like disappointment where her family showered on Louisa. That was just so fucking funny. I feel like I related to that on like a personal level, so I really like that. The interactions between Will and Louisa were really freaking sweet, especially since this is a spoiler here, so you can skip this if you want, that like Will wanted to die. But as much as I enjoyed this book and as much as I enjoyed the plot, I did not like the romance, if that makes sense. I feel like it came out of nowhere. Throughout this book, I just don't see a reason for Louisa to fall in love with Will. They have their little moments, like when they go to the wedding, when they go to this like concert for the first time. They do a variety of fun adventures, because that's basically like the entire plot of the book. We can see Will steadily grow more attracted to Louisa and also more attracted to her personality. There was a physical and internal attraction that Will had for Louisa, and that was clearly seen throughout the book. But I just didn't see Louisa really being that attracted to Will until the very end of the book, and that just like bothered me a little. Like, most of their interactions I wouldn't personally label as romance. I would label them as friendship, and I really thought that this would end up being more of a friendship-like book. I mean, I know this is like an epic romance book and it's an epic romance movie, but I just like, when I was reading it, it all came off as like friendly, because Louisa, like, she always said that Will was passingly handsome, but she was with another guy for like most of this book, and she mostly just like, I don't know, like most of their interactions were like pretty funny, like very heartwarming, but it was more like a friendship kind of thing. Louisa didn't really view him as a sexual being, I mean, as far as I could see from this book, and yeah, it didn't seem like a romance, and it didn't make any sense. Also, like, in the beginning, I felt like the plot was going somewhere, because I feel like I've read a lot of fan fiction based off of you know, like the girl being employed by like the guy, and then like the guy being like a stoic asshole, and the girl somehow making him into like this really soft boy. I thought that was where this was going, and then we hit page 100 and we realized that Will wants to, again, this isn't a spoiler, that we realized that Will wants to kill himself. And I was like, okay, so I guess that took a turn. And then like the rest of the book, which is about, it was about like a little over 2/3 of the book. The rest of them was basically just doing activities. As much as I realized it was, the most of the book was about like Louisa and Will kind of building this rapport and like this friendly connection and all of this trust and everything, I felt like it was too long. I felt like we saw almost like too many scenes of them together, because I will admit that I started to get bored. Like it was still very heartwarming, but like if you're reading this straight, you will quickly get bored of the scenes. It didn't capture my attention like that. So by the time I finished it, the ending was very like sweet, and I honestly liked it because it showed that love doesn't always conquer all. You know, it isn't always enough. And I really like that the book ended that way, even though it was very, very sad. I'm not going to spoil it because I feel like that's something that you should really like figure out on your own, either by reading the book or watching the movie. But yeah, the pacing was a little weird in this book, and I just didn't feel like it was a romance because a lot of the scenes between Will and Louisa seemed platonic. It didn't provoke a lot out of me, especially since the plot gradually got sadder and sadder throughout the entire book, and I didn't cry. Now I'm a crier. So like the fact that I didn't cry because of a book, it just, you can tell something's wrong with that. But I still would say the writing was amazing. I think like the writing, like the interactions between the family, especially between Louisa and her sister Trina, that's what really what kept me in the book. But it wasn't the romance. I honestly couldn't care less about the romance. I cared more about Louisa and Will's friendship than them becoming a romantic pairing, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is I read 2 romance books, but they weren't really romances to me. One of them was more about sex, if anything else, and the other one just came off as like way too platonic and not even romantic. I feel like romantic was basically like the sprinkles on top of the cake that was already really good with just icing and cake, you know? Like it made it seem pretty and like something it wasn't before, but it's still basically just like cake with icing. Because the sprinkles don't do shit. They don't even really add flavor. Just like crunch. That was a really weird analogy. I hope that makes sense. I read 2 romances and didn't really come off as romances to me. Is this gonna stop me from reading romance? No, of course not. I'm a hoe for romance. I literally watched Outlander. If you haven't watched that show yet, you should definitely watch it. But I will say that these 2 definitely disappointed me. There probably are good romances from the 2010s, but these 2 I wouldn't call good romances. This one was a good book, and this one was a terrible book. Both of them weren't really romances for me. But again, that's just my opinion. You guys are welcome to disagree with me in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, you should like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram, my Twitter. They're both linked down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.